Hi everyone, it's Michael, and I can't believe it's already time for the orchid collection update for October. Now, before I do anything else, I want to show you exactly where the orchids are located throughout the apartment. Now, I rearrange my orchids pretty regularly, and that's because one of the things I've discovered is that as it pertains to their growth patterns, oftentimes your orchids can take more light than you think, so long as you acclimate them slowly to those higher light levels. So that's the reason I'm always rearranging them. I'm always trying to kind of maximize my returns. So let's start over this way. I have a couple of my phals, and then up there I also have my little baby phal. These are some other things in semi-hydro, but not orchids. Continuing over this way, I've got my Psychopedilum. I have my mom's Keiki right here. And what's that little guy? That's right, that is the SVO Black Pearl Keiki that popped off when I was unwrapping that present. But it's hanging on, surprisingly. So that is down there. Up here, I've got my Paph. I have, oh, I'm so excited for this. This is almost about, it's like, you can see it's just starting to open its blooms. So I'm really excited to see my Nellie Eiler in bloom. Up here, I've got the two experimental orchids for the urea versus urea-free experiment. I have my Ludicea discolor, which I finally found out that's what it is. My boss had the ID tag, she just didn't realize it was there. And then that is my Rebecca Northern Cloecia. And then up here, I have my Eulophia pedersii. I've got one of my Catasetums, my Ascocenda, my Cattleya, the mini Cattleya Purple Blue Hawaii. Down here, you will see that this is the SVO Black Pearl. And you might be saying, didn't we tell you to take off the black bulbs? Well, I did it. So we'll talk more about that in just a moment. There's my epidendrum, or epinendrum. I always want to add an extra D. Here I have my Alisara, and over here I've got my Cattleya that I treated with the teabag method. I'll give you updates on that. Over this way I have one of my frags. I have my, oh gosh, I can't even remember what a lot of these are called. But I have some Oncidium types down here. I've got my Psychopsis, more Oncidium types, Dendrobium Nobile, Bulbophyllum Fascinator, more Dendrobium. That up there is my Miltonia Sunset. I've got my Maxillaria Tenufolia, and that's another Bulbophyllum up there. Over this way, I do have two more orchids, and only two in the bedroom. I wanted to bring in more, but this vent up here really creates huge swings in heat and cold. So it's not good for the orchids to have that on them. So, but over here I have the division of, I believe it's number 4 in my collection, and it's doing really well. And then I also have my Wild Willie Pacific Bingo Oncidium. So that is where they all are. Now let's go down and just chat about what I'm doing this month. All right, everyone, you're gonna have to forgive me. I look a little bit grubby, but I'm just gonna go straight to the gym after this. But so let's talk through what I've done throughout October. Now, I've honored the system that I had in place from last month pretty closely, but there's a few minor tweaks that I've made. The first one is that as it pertains to flushing. Now, I spent a fair amount of time believing that tap water was completely horrendous and that I should never even touch my orchids. But I have gone back to using tap water to flush my orchids. Not just some of them, all of them. And I'll tell you why. I have, as you saw in the video earlier, I have a bunch of other plants that are in semi-hydroponics that are not orchids. And when I realized that there was none of that white mineral buildup, when none of that was happening for them, I had to kind of reconcile the fact that I was blaming tap water for that buildup, but it was not even a part of a contributing factor. Or maybe it was, but not significantly enough to create that white buildup. So I've gone back to flushing with tap water, and it's been going just fine and fabulously. If anything changes, I will of course let you know. But that's kind of why I've gone back to flushing with tap water. Also, it's way more cost efficient, and also it's really hard to carry 4 gallons of distilled water upstairs all the time. So I just am lazy, I guess. The other thing that I am experimenting with is, and I hope you guys will understand when I say it, benign neglect. So it was, I'm not sure where it came from, but I think somebody commented it on one of my videos. But a little benign neglect goes a long way. Now, I'm not proposing that you ignore your orchids. I'm not proposing that you neglect them at all. But the idea of benign neglect is just an expression for the idea of lovingly giving your orchids their space. As you know, I compulsively overhandle my orchids. So what I've been doing is I've just been kind of taking a step back. I look at them all the time. I'll continue to compulsively just like look at what's going on and check for progress. But in terms of jumping in and trying to do a treatment or trying to force it along or trying to sanitize it, I'm just leaving them alone. So I think that's been really helpful. Also, before I was rotating every watering, every week I would do plain distilled water with nutrient solution. So 1 week just plain distilled water, the next week I would do nutrient solution, and back and forth and back and forth. So now I'm just doing nutrient solution at a constant feed. And that seems to be really helping because the ones that are equipped to receive that nutrient solution really appreciate it, and it's helping them move forward. Or at least it would seem that way. The ones that still struggle with buildup, like my bulbophyllums, which you'll see later, I will continue to rotate them, but now I'm only doing that rotation if there's something that's wrong and it's not processing the nutrient solution properly. So there's that. Of course, there's a few exceptions. I still will only ever water my Paphs and my Frags with nutrient solution 1 time a month. So at the beginning of the month, I water them with the nutrient solution. For the rest of the time, it's just plain distilled. Then we're getting ready for dormancy for my Catasetums, and also we're going into the winter rest period for my Dendrobium nobiles, so I'm just beginning to reduce watering on that. And the whole premise of not treating my orchids with any chemical component is very much still at play. I just don't want to hurt them, and the algae growth is still very unsightly to me, but they just look like they're doing so much better, and they are better, I'm sure of it, because you can see more root growth, you can see them perking up. So now let's go through the process. We're gonna walk through each of these orchids one by one, and we'll just kind of talk through any developments. So starting with number 1, we have my no ID phal. It's just that cute little mini phal, and it's continuing to just do its thing. This little Keiki it's growing at the bottom is developing a life of its very own underneath that leaf there, and the roots are just continuing to creep and reach, so it just appears to be getting more and more comfortable in semi-hydro, and hopefully the leaves will start to kind of grow in their size as it acclimates fully. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Now, number 2, I'm concerned about. This is the Yuan Gold, and this is the one that I did the tea bag treatment on. Now, I guess I had unrealistic expectations because I was just hoping for exactly what Rick L. described, which was that incredible, amazing, immediate root growth, but I'm not really seeing any huge root growth. Now, I alternated the dry and wet periods for a period of about 5 days, and then I just went ahead and got it repotted a little bit deeper into the medium because it was drying out too much. And I guess I do notice a difference in terms of how plump the base canes are. But other than that, I mean, it's still continuing to withdraw energy from this. Here, let me rotate it for you. It's still continuing to withdraw energy from this leaf here, which is super not cute. But it is going very, very slowly, slower than it did with the other leaf that went the same way. So maybe there's something, happening underneath the surface that I'm unaware of, and that's what I'm hoping for, but I'm just not sure at this point. Moving on to number 3, this is my Wilsonara Aloha Sparks Halloween, which is very seasonally appropriate. And again, guys, this one is just gold star winner. It is just the happiest little orchid I've ever seen. It just loves, I don't even know what to do with this thing anymore. And as a matter of fact, it's continuing to put out so many new growths. Let me see if I can show you where they are. We've got a new growth there, got a new growth right here. Moral of the story is there's new growth, there's one right back there, they're everywhere. And it's getting crowded in there, so I'm actually, I'm gonna wait for this to bloom and see how many spikes it puts out for me this year. But I'm probably just gonna divide this. You guys, there's a strong likelihood I'm gonna create an online store and sell divisions of my plants, because some of them are just, and you'll see as we go on, I just am accidentally ending up with like 3 or 4 of the same plant as things happen. And I would love to be able to share them with you that way. So I'll keep you posted on that. Moving on, another example of exactly what I'm talking about. This is number 4. This is my no ID Oncidium. If you follow my Facebook page, I just posted a picture of it when it was in bloom. I would love help IDing it. This was a rescue. I got it for like 25% of the original price because it was covered in aphids, and I just kind of rehabilitated it. But again, this is the one that when I dropped the vase and it shattered, it broke into 3 pieces. So you can see, here is the crown glory. This one here, that was the bulb. It was completely desiccated, completely shriveled, just like that one. Replumped up, put out this growth, which is so happy and so healthy. And now that growth is putting out a new growth here. Now, even oddly enough, this one that is super desiccated, its pseudobulb is starting to mature right here, but it also put out a new growth. Now, the third piece that broke off, I potted all by itself, and it was just as desiccated. It used to look just like this, and it plumped up so quickly, and its new growth is also just really, really happy. The roots are going nuts. They're going everywhere. You could just kind of see it. It's even down into the bottom. So it's doing really well, but I do think that there's something to be said. I wanted to keep the mother, like each of the divisions together with the mother plant, because I guess the mother plant helps to regulate it for all of the plants. But I wanted to see what would happen if I separated it. But I wonder if there's any correlation between the fact that these two have put out new growths, and even though this one's plumped up and doing really well, it has not put out a new growth. So I don't know if that means anything, but we'll see. So as you know, number 5 and number 6 passed. You can see if there is a number that isn't represented here, guys, just check the description. It'll tell you exactly what happened to them and when they died or when they were sold or whatever. So this is number 7 in my collection, also a gold star winner. Look how plump the canes are on this dendrobium. This is To My Kids Dendrobium Nobile. And it's just, it has fared so well. It's continuing to put out new leaves. That's why I'm starting to slow watering on this and just reduce it a bit. It just is not showing me any signs of chilling out. It's just not gonna stop. So I might have to kind of force it into its winter rest. But look, the roots are just continuing to go everywhere. You can see the algae growth has developed significantly, but look at this root. Like, it's starting to circle itself and really get established in the pot, which makes me so happy. Moving on to number 8, this is my Banfieldara Mystic Maze. And again, this one lost all of its roots as it transitioned. It did really poorly at first, and then it put out this new growth throughout tons and tons and tons of new roots. And now it is getting super well established in the pot. And I feel pretty confident that this one's actually gonna give me a flower spike this year. So we shall see, but that new growth is just doing phenomenally well. Now we're gonna move on to number 9. Number 9 is the Keiki from my mom's house. Now, this was top secret. I didn't show you guys this process. I did the tea bag trick with this guy too. This didn't give me the roots that I was hoping for. I didn't see crazy astronomical increased growth rates for this, but it was starting to get a little flimsy on the leaf, and now the leaf is more turgid again. It seems more rigid. So it did a good job of rehydrating the plant, but I don't know if it's helping it put down new roots. I'm just really hoping it will. And then number 10 passed. Now we're on to number 11. This is my Mendenhall Hildos Psychopsis. And I can't wait for this one to spike for me because it's doing really well. The colors remain super vivid, and the roots continue to just kill the game. I mean, they are, and as I said before, the roots are a little bit shy. They tend not to like to peek out of the medium, but you can see they're filled inside of there. But this one is doing really well, and I am hoping for a flower spike very soon. All right, guys, so continuing on, we are at number 12. This is my Ox Lottery Prince Phalaenopsis, and this one is continuing to acclimate beautifully. After its whole debacle when I burned the crap out of it with Physane 20, I just didn't know if it was ever gonna recover. But look, even the desiccated black tips of the roots have started to yield new growths, and it is really starting to get comfortable in semi-hydroponics again and establish itself, and it's putting out that new leaf, which is doing just lovely. And so this one is well on its way. On to number 13. This is my No ID Frag. This one fought me and fought me and fought me, and now it is just really doing incredibly well. So let me see if you can see any of the root growth. You can see it peeking down there, but also look at the bottom. It's really made itself at home in semi-hydroponics, and it is evident in terms of the foliage because you can see all of the discolorations that are already on this plant are from when I was giving it too much nutrient solution. But look, all of the new growths are putting out new leaves, new leaves, new leaves. It is really just starting to get some momentum, so that makes me really happy. Number 14 in my collection passed a long time ago. This is number 15 in the collection. This is my Sogo Yukidan Phalaenopsis. And this is actually the focal point of a 4-month adaptation video I'm doing. So I started this process in July, what was it? July 26th is when I started it. So I wanted to show you kind of every stage of adaptation, but look at how this guy is doing now. It is doing so well. The roots are just continuing to expand down into the medium. The plant is so happy. When I take you into the crown, look at all of that luscious root growth. It lost all of its roots. It pouted for a really long time, and then it just went nuts in the pot. And that's kind of the trick with semi-hydroponics, guys. That's the way it goes. But I look forward to sharing that video with you because I will film the last update on it at exactly the 4-month mark. So that'll be November 26th, and then you guys can see exactly what I'm talking about. Moving on, this is number 16 in my collection. This is my, and actually I communicated with the gentleman I bought this from. I've been calling it a Dapper Dots Catasetum, but it's a hybrid. It's a Dapper Dots and Nicolasa Tavares Catasetum. So I'm really excited. I thought it was gonna give me green flowers, but now it's gonna be, I don't know what the flowers are gonna look like, which makes me even more excited. It's never bloomed for me, but I think it actually might, because just look how plump those growths are, guys. This really struggled. I repotted it at the wrong time, and it totally bounced back, because I repotted this at the beginning of active growth, and all of the roots died. So it took a while to gain momentum again, but it's doing wonderful now. The interesting thing is the leaves aren't turning color, even though they're like ripping off because these bulbs are so swollen. So I'm really waiting for this to give me an indicator of when to put it into dormancy, but I don't know if it ever will. I might have to force this one into dormancy as well. So that's something to consider. Again, the algae just makes me so grossed out, but it's doing fabulous the more I leave it alone, so I'm just gonna keep leaving it alone. On to number 17. This is my Betty May Carmela Steele Ascocenda. And again, just like such a confusing success story, but here it goes. It's just continuing to put down roots everywhere, everywhere, like I said. And you'll notice I have this duct tape here. I don't know if I can actually angle it so you can see, but I have roots that are trying to grow up out of the medium, and I really want to encourage them to go downward and just straight into the medium. I'm gonna very gently do the same thing to this root here, and just hope I can like get it to be really fully adapted to semi-hydroponics, exclusively to semi-hydroponics. Moving on to number 18, this is my Psychopedilum. Now I have to say, this one is giving me just a little concern because look at the leaves. It just doesn't look like it's thrilled. It doesn't look like it's super happy, but it is doing well. And it's so confusing because here, I'll show you. Look at the new growth that's happening over here. And I don't know if you guys can see it as well on camera, but it is putting down roots deep into the medium, and it's drinking up all of the water that I give it. Can you see the roots anywhere? Shoot darn. Well, there are roots that go, they extend, the roots that I'm seeing go down to about right here in the medium, and they're a lot more visible when I'm flushing with water and you see these kind of float up a little bit. But there's a lot of healthy roots that are in there drinking up the water. So I think that the new growths are the ones that are responsible for providing hydration to this entire plant. All of the old growths look super desiccated. That's because they are. They've kind of shriveled themselves out in the process of supporting these new growths. But in theory, once these new growths are established enough, it'll nourish the entire plant. So I'm still waiting for that turnaround point. Now moving on to number 19, this is my Bulbophyllum Fascinator. Again, just frustrating in terms of, look at that mineral buildup. So I'm continuing to just flush with distilled water. I'm giving it, just like my Frag and my Paphs, I am doing 1 nutrient solution water at the beginning of the month, and then the rest I'm just doing distilled until it is fully flushed from the system. It's getting better. Like, I don't want to seem so sad about it. It is getting better, but it's not getting better at the rate that I would prefer. So that's my Bulbophyllum Fascinator. Same narrative over here with my Bulbophyllum Ambrosia. But this one is also just doing phenomenally well. Look at all the new roots it's putting down. The new growths are continuing to get plump and fat, and the leaves are starting to catch up in size to the other leaves. So it's doing really well. I just don't know why it doesn't it just can't seem to get over this hump with all of that buildup. Now moving on, you all remember when I did surgery, this is number 21 in my collection. This is my Paphiopedilum Pinocchio Laui hybrid. Something just so awesome and so nice. That new growth is doing so good, and it's so cute, and its leaves are starting to flare out, which makes me so happy. It really is doing nicely. This is my Maxillaria Tenufolia. You can see it's also really struggling with mineral buildup for no reason. So the bulbs on it look just a bit desiccated. They're getting just a little shrivelly, not terribly, but the strange thing is it's drinking the water quickly every single time I water it. So I know that it has a root system that is capable of processing the water, but I'm gonna keep tweaking and modifying my system with it because I really want this one to excel. Maybe it's just still acclimating and it's pouting like other orchids do, but this has been like a long time to pout. So I'm not sure what's going on with that one, but I'm hoping for the best and I'll keep you posted if I make any changes. And we're picking back up with number 24 in my collection. Number 23 did pass. That was my friend Kristen's Phalaenopsis. But this is number 24. This is my Meltonia Sunset. And I'm excited because it is just, again, starting to get acclimated into semi-hydro. You can see those are the new growth, the new green root tips that are coming in and just finally venturing down into the medium, which is just fabulous because that's exactly what I need it to be doing. And then over here you can see that we have a brand new growth that has sprouted from the base of, where'd you go? Let's see if I can get it to focus. Sprouted from the base of an old one. You can see all of the new little roots with the green tips that are coming out and starting to venture downward. So this is just beginning the process of acclimating. You can tell that the old root system wasn't terribly viable based off of how these leaves are, starting to accordion. But that will, I think that'll pass pretty quickly. And I'm hoping we can see some flower spikes soon. If it continues at the rate that it is, we should be able to see them by spring. So fingers crossed. Moving on to number 25. This is my Epinendrum Green Hornet. And if I'm not mistaken, I think I see some flower sheaths coming up from right in the center there, as well as, I don't know if you guys can see it on the new one, the bulb is just starting to mature. You can tell because it's breaking through that leaf. But also, there's a little sheath right down in the middle there. I don't know if you guys can even tell, but I can see it. And it's weird because I didn't think this one was doing very well because I didn't see any roots, but now its roots are just everywhere. It is, seems pretty content in semi-hydroponics. I will say that I have a hard time keeping up with this one. The container that I put it in, the water reservoir is super shallow and it drinks it up faster than I can keep up with. So I do believe I need to just put this in a different container. I don't want to set it back right now, so I'm just going to leave it alone and try to be more diligent about watering. On to number 26. This is my Aloha Stellar. And this one is doing really well. It's kind of confusing because the old growths, as you can see, are a little bit desiccated, a little bit pruny. But look at the new growth here. Super, super plump, really happy, but the leaves on it are accordioned because it struggled to adapt. But now that it is adapting, it's got little green root tips going everywhere. It's starting to make its way down, but this one is a really prime example of something that I am starting to do with my orchids, which is rotate the light source. Because this one was, where it was placed, you can see all of the bulbs started to lean this way towards the light, and now the entire plant is like tilted, which I don't care for. So now I repositioned it so the light source is actually coming from behind the plant in the hopes that it'll correct itself and lift itself up. So I'm having to do that with a lot of orchids, but it's something that I've never actually had to pay attention to until now. Moving on, we are at number 27. This is my Maritza Memoria Rolando Phragmipedium, and I did finally have to cut off the flower spike. It did withdraw the energy from it. I wasn't sure what was going on, and I was so depressed, but look at the base right here inside of this leaf. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there is a baby new growth, an entire new one coming in right next to it. So that's not a flower spike. Let me see if I can even pull this back a bit. I don't want to damage it though. Yeah, I don't want to push my luck, but you can see it right in there. So that's a new growth on it. I'm super happy, and I was so confused that the flower spike aborted because it was, like, look at these roots. This was one that, like, this frag adapted better than any of my Paps or frags ever have before. It adapted really quickly. But you never know. Sometimes the plant just makes the choice for its best interest. And now it has a new growth coming, so that's really exciting. On to number 28. This is a Cattleya Purple Blue Hawaii Mini. And you guys, such an unexpected success story. Just like my Ascocenda, Cattleyas are notorious for pouting when you put them into semi-hydroponics, but not this guy. Look at this. Look at how many, there's like 7 new growths. There's one there, there's one there, there's one that like tried to grow down into it, another one that grew down into it. Hold on, let me see if I can remove this so you can see what there's another one that's growing right down into the medium. And then just look at this surge of roots that is pouring, flooding downward. But this guy is just winning at life. So I'm really proud of you. Keep it going, little guy. Now, my Eulaphia pedersii, this is number 29 in my collection, and I'm concerned about this one. And I think it's because I'm not growing it in the right medium. Again, my preferred method is semi-hydroponics. It's easier, it's manageable for me. But like my Cypripedium acol, I think this one needs to be outside. It has just not done very well. You can see that all of the leaves it had dried up. I think this guy needs to go outside. It's a desert-faring orchid. It likes acidic soils and like intense swings. So I think it has to be an outdoor orchid. I think I need to put it in like some sandy soil and just bite the bullet and put it outside. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I need to expand my horizons and start, you know, exploring more outdoor orchids. I just choose generally not to invest in anything that I feel like will be more work for me. But we'll see. We'll see how I decide to move forward with this. I put this rock here as a reminder that number 30 is the Cypripedium acol. They're still green. They're doing their thing. The soil is still moist and damp. And, you know, I'm just hoping for the best for these guys. We are on to number 32. This is my Wild Willy Pacific Bingo Oncidium. And you can see the old growths. They are just shriveled, they're pruny, but it did manage to put out this entire new growth. Now I have been waiting this entire time for this new growth to put out some roots to sustain the rest of the plant, and it just started to do that. You can see right at the base there, which is really exciting. But I guess it was doing it before I even realized it. The plant had already put out a bunch of new roots. There's one there. There's one coming right. It like had threaded itself through and up and over. But I mean, it seems to be acclimating really, really well. It just needs a more established root system to really plump those back up. So I look forward to that happening because, I mean, you guys just look at it. You can see that the new growth is already crinkly because of the inconsistent moisture. So I'm hoping this self-corrects really soon. Now we are on to number 32. This is my Cloecia Rebecca Northern, and this is the one that I put in direct sunlight, burned the day I got it, and it lost all of its leaves. So, you know, this one I think is going to do just fine. It just needs to go through its dormancy, wake up, and put out a new growth. But I guess my concern here is I don't really know when to put this one into dormancy because its leaves are gone prematurely, so it doesn't have any way to signal me. So I guess I'm just going to try to put it on the same cadence as my Dapper Dots Nicolasa Tavares and my SVO Black Pearl. So when those indicate that it's time for dormancy, I'll put this one into dormancy as well. But for the time being, it's being watered just as usual. Now this one, it makes me kind of sad because I paid a lot for this one because it's so gorgeous. This is my Dendrobium Tangerine, and it's so beautiful, and I can't wait for the blooms. They're so pretty. But one of the things I didn't notice was, and you can see it's the impact it's had. This leaf has just started to yellow and fall, and this is starting to get all crinkled, is I potted this way too high in the medium. I actually had the root system not here. I had it all the way up here, and I didn't realize that literally the dry line was here. So no water was making its way up. The roots completely dried out. They're just all in terrible shape. There is truly only one viable root in this entire plant. You can see it right here in the back. It's that one little green guy. But I had to repot it, put the roots deeper and closer to the water reservoir, which I think is gonna help it, but I just hope I haven't done too much damage right before it goes into winter. On to number 34. This is my Ludicea Discolor, and I'm really, really impressed. The funny thing is I don't see any roots. I know that they're gonna take a long while to develop, so I'm not really seeing any activity in the way of roots. However, this plant is doing really well because this leaf up here used to be curled up into a tiny little ball, and it fully unraveled and presented itself. And then if you go deep down into it, you can see that there's another one on its way. So that's all good news. Again, I've never taken care of this kind of orchid, but it does seem to be enjoying semi-hydroponics after a period of pouting, so that's really good. Now, onto my Bergera, I don't know. My Nelly Eiler is so pretty, and as I said earlier, guys, look at it. It's just like, it is just heartbeats away from opening its blooms. I'm so thrilled it didn't bud blast. Quite the contrary, in fact. It seems to be doing even better since I put it into semi-hydro. It has put out 2 new growths up here on the flower spike. I don't know if you can see that, but it's doing the exact same thing on this guy as well. Let me see if I can get you in on it. It's putting up more new growths, more and more buds. And I'm not having the difficulty that I was with the other one getting it to stay hydrated. It's drinking up the water just fine. The roots seem to be metabolizing just fine. So I am thrilled about that, and I can't wait to show you this flower in bloom. Now on to a really interesting story, and again, a continuation of how one plant turns into so many plants. This is number 36 in the collection. This is my Fred Clarkiara After Dark SVO Black Pearl. Now these all used to be a part of the same plant. Now, if you guys remember, when I did the repot, just look over the comments, you guys. Everyone was like, no, get rid of the black bulbs. Those are rot. They're so scary. No, it's going to really damage the plant. And you know what? You may very, very well be right. So I did go ahead. I separated them. This does have, you can barely see it. There's actually 4 bulbs here, so it should be just fine in terms of its ability to bloom. But as you know, the Keiki popped off of it at the very beginning when I was unwrapping it. So that one is doing its thing now in semi-hydro. I'm hoping for the best. I don't know what will become of it. But I did separate out the 2 black bulbs. But here is the thing, you guys. I'm not convinced that these are, obviously they're not healthy, but I don't know that they're rotted. They're not squishy in any way. They're both very firm. And in my apartment, you guys, the second I have anything that's rotting, I find fruit flies. They just like are all over it. And there are no fruit flies on this plant whatsoever. So it's continuing to drink up water too. It's like, it's not, I don't know, its root system is continuing to use water. It's hanging in there. So I don't know what's going on with this plant. So what I decided was I was just going to repot it. If it is completely dead and rotted, no harm, no foul, nothing will become of this. And if it starts to rot and I see fruit flies, I'll get rid of it. But what if it doesn't? What if after dormancy, this puts out a new growth? Then I'll have 3 SVL black pearls and that'll be crazy. So this is just a little experiment for myself. Maybe I'm just overestimating its capacity to pull through, but these things are super resilient plants. So I just want to see. Now, on to the last 2. These are my urea versus urea-free experiment orchids. And I actually feel kind of guilty not giving them numbers because they are in my care. They're no different than any of the other orchids. So let me know your thoughts below. Should this be number 37 and 38? I don't know. I can't tell. But just to give you a snapshot, it's interesting because they are both doing frustratingly the same. So this one is continuing to put out its new leaf. Look how beautiful and happy that is. But if I take you in on the roots, where is it? It is just starting to, you can see barely, off of the blackened tip, starting to grow a viable root. And it is doing that. It's also putting out one right there. So this is now finally starting to put out a new root system. And I was like, okay, great. So we know that urea-free is better. But then you come over to this guy, and this guy is also, its leaf is now finally starting to develop. It looks a little bit better. I will say that the leaf color is reddish, which usually is indicative of some sort of a nutritional thing. But when I take you in on the roots on this one, look what's doing the exact same thing. It's putting out a viable root there, and it's putting out a viable root out of a blackened root tip there. So these guys are just neck and neck. I don't know what's better. I don't know what's worse, but I do feel confused. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I realize this is a long video, but we had a lot to cover. Let me know your thoughts about making 37 and 38 officially a part of the collection, or should I just keep them as experiment orchids? I love you guys. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Happy growing. I love you and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, guys.